Al, lovely to see you.
I'm good seeing you.
I'm really enjoying this episode so far based on just one thing. And are we allowed to talk about your hair?
Yeah, if you want.
Um, were we going for the samurai look?
Yeah,
No?
no. Just trying
It's reminiscent of my mother's wedding picture with the beehive.
to. And see, I figured here, because with my hair normally being out to
Yeah,
here.
and you do have nice
Well, I
hair.
think I
Yes.
appreciate that. It's hard to get thumbnails for when we do things, so
Yes.
this way you can get a thumbnail of it. But I can do something different. I can do like pigtails or maybe like the Princess Leia
Be
buns next
interesting
time.
because if I just chop the top off, it looks like
Oh,
you got your hair slicked back.
yeah, no, or a mullet. Yeah, no. And
You
then
look like an action figure now because like we can
uh,
just change the head on you all the time.
and the producer in the background is making gestures here. If I'm doing Princess Leia with the buns, I got to do a bikini, and it's like
Oh
I'm
God.
drawing the line there.
Al with the gold
I'm
bikini.
drawing the line there.
Do not tempt me. That's a thumbnail in
Oh,
the
that will,
making.
yeah, oh, yeah. I can just see how that's going to turn out. Okay.
But yeah, I'm sure there are some women that love it. So, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's different looks that you have and different women are appreciating it. And I think that is a good segue into our conversation today. I figured we'd talk a little bit about the law of attraction,
Okay.
why we attract who we attract.
Is this the three L's?
This is the three L's, yes. What are the three L's?
Love,
Love, yes.
a little bit of lust.
Lust, yes.
And it's got to be the third one that you taught me.
Yes.
Limerence.
Yes.
Not limericks. Like, there once was a man from
Not dirty
Nantucket.
limericks, not
Yeah.
like when you're sitting in a bathroom stall and you're just reading it off.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So limerence. Yeah.
All right. So bathroom stall. Yeah. Anyone ever fall in love by calling one of those phone numbers? Jenny 8675309.
Oh, who do I turn to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I've never called one of those.
No, no.
So law of attraction, why we attract who we attract in love,
All right.
friendships too, but let's stick to love.
Yeah.
When you are meeting someone and you feel that initial pull towards them, is it love? Is it limerence? Is it lust? Or is it just longing?
Wow.
I wrote that out specially for you.
Wow. That's good.
Thank you.
That is good.
Mhm. How do you know the difference between all of them and the feelings? When you get butterflies, let's talk about butterflies.
I mean, research will say butterflies are actually not a good thing.
No, research would say butterflies are actually a very bad thing.
It's your
I don't want to use the word
body's
trauma, but
yeah,
yes.
yeah, it's your body's warning system saying this is not a healthy situation.
But when did butterflies work for you? When you were a teenager? Feeling butterflies when you first met someone. Oh, this person's special. There's something about them I really like.
I always just thought it was my spidey sense tingling.
For me now, if I felt butterflies, I'm like, okay, which parent do you remind me of?
Mm,
And not in a good way,
that's fair.
right?
Yeah.
Or which person from my past that, I still have
Yeah.
issues with that are unresolved that you remind me of that
Yeah.
this is going to come up later. Like, this is a test.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I don't know. Have you ever felt like you were really in love before? And let's, go back to when you were a kid, grade one. You married that girl in your class, gave
Um,
her your ring.
yeah, I mean, I go back to grade six and the crush I had in grade six.
Yeah.
Never got to go out with her.
No?
No,
No?
no.
Never got invited to her basement.
No,
Your
did all.
dad coming down every 20 minutes offering you guys cookies and milk
I mean, we did, the grade six parties and everything.
and
So,
spin the bottle.
yeah,
Did you ever fall in love with someone in the dark?
2 minutes in the closet.
First kiss? Sparks flew? Fire started? Y'all had to leave the house?
Yeah, probably more like nerves and awkwardness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You ended up kissing like her ear by mistake?
it was some orifice. Who knows?
Okay. Segue right out of that.
There you go.
That is not PG. All right, but yeah, I guess we should kind of go through the difference of, what is actual love,
Yeah.
what is lust, and what is limerence. So when you're entering into a relationship, you know, do you know what the difference between the three are? Um, could you tell, or have you had to learn over the years when you've jumped into a relationship, maybe for the wrong reasons? And what are you striving for in a relationship as you get older and more mature?
phenomenal questions. I was going to say, and ideally,
Hmm.
if you're healthy,
Hmm.
right? I'm not even getting into attachment theory now, but if I'm just talking
Okay.
about healthy, that you are striving for love. Um,
Do you know what love
but
is?
I was going to say that's the thing, right?
Hmm.
So the idea of, I'm not saying, okay, let me ask you this. I'll give you my take in a second. Do you believe in love at first sight? Or do you believe you can meet someone and know it's the person, or at least think you know it's the person?
I believe in lust at first sight.
Okay.
I believe, well, because you could do that from far enough away, but it's still, we've talked about this before. Yes, physical attraction important. Is it the only thing that's important? Definitely not.
Yep.
Physical attraction can grow over time as you get to know somebody. Pheromones also, that chemical reaction,
Yeah.
right? There's just something about the other person that, is alluring to you, but it's a chemical reaction. So do I necessarily believe in love at first sight? No, I believe in chemical reactions though, and you having a preference for certain looks. But that even goes to another question. You know, do you always fall for the same look in a person?
So I can
Like
say,
what's
yeah,
your type specifically?
yeah. So I can say for me, I'm not talking love now, but when I've really been really interested in someone, at
Mm-hmm.
least, it's been different types.
Mm-hmm.
So I am attracted to different types look wise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as I've gotten older, I would say there are certain traits I look for that I would want consistent in any woman now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stability.
Oh, there's a whole host of things.
Yeah. Give me
Yeah.
two.
I don't want to give two.
I just want two.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode. Yeah, consistency and openness.
Openness.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because openness speaks to a whole host of things, from strong communication to adaptability to compromise. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So you're saying physical traits not necessarily the same every time you date someone. I would say the same.
yeah.
I've, dated people of different heights, different facial structure, different hair color, different eye color, different age groups even,
Oh,
right?
I've done that,
Like
and
that's generational too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've done that, and I mean, and for me, from all different backgrounds as well.
Okay, but as an example, you're an artist. So
Yeah,
even for myself, when I had to go back and look at my own pattern, I found that I was either looking at someone who was very type A.
yeah.
I was drawn to that. Someone who was, kind of very upfront, where they were known by a lot of people, versus another type that I liked, which were artists themselves, right? But those are parts of you as well. I wouldn't call myself type A, but I guess there are times when I am. So I'm drawn to that in somebody
Yep.
else, or even if I don't have it, I'm drawn to it in someone else, or I'm drawn to someone who's artistic because there's parts of me that are artistic too. So I admire that in someone. So that's another way that you're attracted to someone. But again, it's part of you,
Absolutely.
right? You're more seeking to love yourself, which is why you're seeking out another person to kind of fill something in you. But as you grow older and more mature, how do you find you're picking your partners? Same way as you were when you were younger, or have you learned?
It's interesting because some of the things that still might draw me to a person, part of it might be reflective of still who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's not about feeling love for myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because again, we've talked in the past about you got to love yourself before loving
Mm-hmm.
anyone else. It's not about that, but rather it's some of those characteristics, those commonalities that I really appreciate and that I'm drawn to.
Okay.
But I don't, again, I don't think it's that I'm drawn to a certain type because of something I'm craving in terms of some gap or something I was
Something you're
lacking.
lacking, yeah.
Exactly, like when I was younger, it might be, oh, this attracts me because I haven't been able to get this, or this appeals because of whatever situation. I think now it's more just there's even personality types. Anyone who knows me knows someone who's very reserved and shy and quiet. It's not going to be a good fit.
No, but I think that goes to some of the ways that you and I both grew up. And again, attachment theory,
Yeah.
right? Anxious, avoidant. We both also, even as, we try to grow and become more secure, we still also need someone with a little bit of chaos, right? So you're still looking for that in someone. If they don't have that, if someone was totally normal, which is what you should strive for, right? Whatever normal is, but you may not go for that because there's a part of that chaos that you still seek out.
So going back to the idea of normal, and I don't even personally, I don't even really even believe in that term, because what is
What is
normal,
normal? Yeah.
right? But using that as a generic point, let's not worry about semantics right now. Someone can be normal or healthier,
Mm-hmm.
but still have a bit of a bigger personality.
Mm-hmm.
For me, someone who is super quiet, super reserved, all those things,
Mm-hmm.
it just it
Was it
doesn't
like the
jive.
whole opposites attract though? Like, because you are not always, you're very outgoing and you can be, right? I've watched you in bars walk up straight up to people and ask them questions
Right.
sometimes, which I wouldn't do, but you have no problem doing it. But even if you're looking at very extroverted, very, very introverted people, sometimes those two can attract each other also.
Absolutely.
But again, why? Is it because that person has something that you don't, so you both benefit from the other's
Yeah.
person's ways,
Yeah.
right? Which I find interesting. So, I mean, those are a lot of different ways that you have to look at it. Like, why are you choosing who you're choosing? And obviously, we don't have a psychologist here, so we don't have anyone to kind of help guide us through that. All we have is kind of notes on, what we should be striving for, or what the difference between these three terms is, so that people can understand even themselves when they're falling in love with someone. It's like, what are they really feeling? Is this actual love? Is it lust? Or is it limerence? And all three are very different.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. As we delve into that, and I'm
Mm,
like, I'm saying like, let's just jump right in the deep end.
mm,
But so you hear this person, you're sitting out there, and you'll be sitting there with a buddy, for example. You heard
yeah.
someone say, they look across the room, it's like, I think I'm in love. I
Hmm.
haven't even spoken to the person yet, but I
Yeah.
think I'm in love.
Hmm.
Okay,
Fantasy.
right?
Yeah.
So
How could you be in love with someone you haven't even spoken to?
exactly,
Let them talk. High squeaky voice. I'm out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we know it's not love.
Yeah.
What is it then?
It's attraction.
Okay, but does that when we're talking about the three L's? So that type of attraction.
I would might fall between lust, and we can figure that out as we're going along. But I would say of the three, that I think would probably fall more between lust. No different than young boy looking at, I'll use the example of when I used to look at a Playboy magazine when I was a kid. And, I fell in love with, what was her name? She had really, really long hair down to the floor, named Deborah Jo Fondren from the 70s.
I can't believe you
If she's
remember this.
still alive, it just,
I
I was a big fan.
it
Um,
was the 70s. Which hair are we
it's the
talking
late
about?
70s. No, no, she had that long blonde hair, like all the way to
Her
the
name
ground.
wasn't Rapunzel.
Yeah, and forget what she looked like otherwise. I just face beautiful, hair beautiful. It's like, but it's like I was in traction meet. When I was a kid, I was 4 years old. I would be in movies and my dad would take us all to see this Superman over and over again because he couldn't think of what else to do with us. And I would break away from his hand, literally find a woman who was blonde.
Yeah.
And I'm 4 years old. So when I say woman, they could have been 16, they could have been 20, they could have been 25. I literally would go sit on their lap and want to play with their hair because I loved blonde hair when I was a kid. Right. So, but that's the same kind of thing. It's like, ooh, blonde hair, right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm in love. Not in love. It's just it's it's something I was attracted to, but didn't know the person, right? And even as a kid, it's like being attracted to like bubbles and following them.
Okay. So the people, and you
Mhm.
and I both know people where it's just constantly they're head over heels, person after person after
Mhm.
person. So is that they just fall in love really easily?
Narcissist,
Is it that
love bombing.
but the people who are constant, right? Like if we know someone where it's even different types of potential
What you're
mates.
saying that they'd fall in love with someone and literally after the 3 month honeymoon phase, right? Or however long, like that was it. Like they fall out of love with them just as quickly as they quote
Or,
unquote
or,
fell
or
in
they
love
or
with
they
them.
might be in love with everyone they meet or they think, and then they're heartbroken every time it ends really quickly.
But what's that criteria for falling in love is the question.
And then it goes back to, is it really love?
I don't think it could be really love
No.
because how do you leave someone that you really love?
No, I'm talking about the person's ending things. So it's let's say the female's in love with said guy and the guy's ending things.
Mm.
But then the female meets someone else and they're in love with that one. And then the
Is it
guy ends
love
it.
or infatuation? That
Exactly.
is a very good
That's
question.
what I'm asking.
All right. So
Yeah.
let's start off by asking, what is love? I
I'm
always
not I'm
have to
not
say, baby, don't hurt me
I was
after
gonna
that
say,
because
yeah,
it
I
just
just
pops
wanna
into my head.
yeah.
No, what is romantic love? So we should define that first, because I think if we start with that, then we can kind of go into the darker sides of it.
Okay.
I had an article which we will post for this. It quotes something called Sternberg's triangular theory of love, which says that consummate love, the goal of all relationships, would have these specific components.
Okay.
Number one, let's see if you agree, intimacy, connection via emotional and physical intimacy.
Yep.
It should have intimacy. Passion is
Okay.
number two. Feelings of physical and romantic attraction. and even a bit of limerence in the
Okay.
beginning, right? Feeling head over heels again.
Okay.
Number three, commitment, shared goals, shared values. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I
The
can
love
see
would
that.
have intimacy, passion, and commitment. Am I missing anything that should be on that list?
No. The when was this article written?
I have 2024
Okay, so
this
it's
year,
recent.
January. Yeah.
No, the only thing I'm curious about, because you talked about the physical and the emotional, right?
And compatibility might be in there too, but
Well, the other thing is too is when you get into the five elements. So there's the physical, the sexual, the intellectual, the emotional, and the spiritual. So
mm-hmm,
it doesn't cover all five of those.
mm-hmm.
But in terms of the general premise, yeah, I would agree with what you shared with me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So, in terms of the stages of romantic love, right, which
Okay.
is what you're striving for,
Yeah.
and that's the thing about romantic love, is it supposed to stay the way it did when it started? Are you supposed to be able to maintain those feelings of the first 3 months, first year, forever?
No, I don't know if have we talked about this before where so this is really interesting. And again, I don't know if we've talked about this. I know that when I was younger and I'd have relationships, right? You'd be in a relationship
Mm-hmm,
and that crazy head over heel feelings that you get all the time,
mm-hmm,
right? You're on the phone till 3 o'clock in the morning, you're
mm-hmm.
thinking about the person nonstop and this and
You're
that.
sharing all these aspects about you. They're sharing. You're learning about
Yeah,
each other, and
right?
it's like so brand new. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just like it's exhilarating and it's all you can focus on. And it
Mm-hmm.
just feels like you're like walking on clouds. And it's an amazing,
Yeah,
amazing
you're
feeling.
having chemical reactions like in your body nonstop, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like a drug.
And then 3, 4, 6 months into it, it kind of goes away,
Or settles into
right?
something else. Yeah.
And then it would be like, oh, does that mean I'm not into that person as much? And what's interesting is, and this is proven
Mm-hmm.
scientifically. So what happens is the brain,
Mm-hmm.
it's the dopamine rush
Yeah.
initially, right? And that's what helps with the initial attraction.
Mm-hmm.
But they say, you think about how many people in new relationships, they're exhausted all the time. Why? Because you're on the phone so late every
Mm-hmm.
night. You don't get off the phone, and then you're distracted at work and not
You
getting
spend
things
the night
done.
there. You don't go to bed till 2, 3 in the morning. Yeah.
Exactly, right? You're daydreaming about the person at work, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're behind them working this and that.
Yeah.
That keeps up indefinitely. You're not going to survive. You're gonna end up losing your job because you're not performing. You end up not sleeping. Like
Yeah.
it just
That'd be a real broken heart when you have a heart attack because you can't maintain that. Yeah.
right, because it's actually detrimental. So
Yeah.
it's that great rush initially, but it's detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is eventually the dopamine levels and all those things, they calm down
Mm-hmm.
and it settles into a more, we'll say,
It
mature type of
should
response.
settle into more mature type of
Yeah.
love, but because you're talking about chemicals, I'm going to bring this up now. So let's talk about, a different type of relationship, which is, more of a toxic relationship where those chemicals keep coming and going because roadblocks keep getting put in front of you. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll use again the anxious avoidant trap,
Right.
right? Where they're in the beginning, they're so attracted to each other because they have similarities. But once they hit that wall where they start to see their real differences, and the avoidance starts to pull away, and the anxious person tries to pull them back, it's a dance, right? And each time they do that dance, that chemical, that dopamine rush comes back.
Yep.
Then it goes away and it comes back. Over time, it starts to dissipate more and more, but it will last for quite a while and keep you in that honeymoon phase, in a loop of that honeymoon phase, because you're both traumatizing each other.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another way of looking at it too. So anyone who's been in those types of relationships, is that love?
I mean, in many cases, look, if you can work through it and you can figure it out, and the two of you start to understand each other and become more secure and understand each other's needs and this and that,
Little
then
little
yes,
therapy, sure, yeah.
absolutely. But otherwise, look, I'm not saying it can't be love,
Hmm.
but in other cases, it goes
Is
back
it
to
a
his past.
healthy kind of love?
No, it's not definitely. It's definitely
Yeah.
not healthy,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Let's talk about the stages of romantic love, of what we all kind of go through, and especially for people that ended up getting married, been married 20 years, 50 years. Wow,
Yeah,
50 years. Your parents 50?
55.
Yeah, my grandparents made it to
Crazy
50.
thing is, I'm still only 29. It's wild.
Exactly.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Just my sisters are really old. They're probably like cursing me right now.
Mhm. That's why he can still hang around the high schools. Um,
Oh, dude. Fuck.
Stages of romantic love. Number one, infatuation. So here's your honeymoon stage.
Okay.
lasts up to 6 months. What is included in this stage? Lust, we just talked about it,
Yep.
learning about the other person, exploring each other, whether it's your bodies or things that each other likes, learning about, who they are as a person. Sometimes, depending how often people will meet friends and family.
Yep.
There's a good question for you. When you're meeting someone and you really want to get to know them, do you want to spend a lot of time with just them alone, or would you like to be introduced to family and friends quickly to learn a lot more about them a lot faster?
It's
Or do you
funny
just trust
because,
what they're saying about themselves?
it's interesting because, and I don't do it often.
Hmm.
The few times I have done it, when then I like introducing people to my friends and family. I can
Yeah.
be pretty private with things like that,
Yeah.
especially more so family, right?
Hmm.
Um, but in terms of meeting the other person's family and things like that, it's
Hmm.
always just, I'm like, yeah, if we do, we do. We don't, we don't. I'll kind of base things on what I'm observing here. But there is a benefit to seeing how people interact with friends and family, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if you
You
went
see,
to a
you see
party and met all their
friends, you
friends,
see a whole different dynamic.
yeah.
And
Or
oh,
they
yeah.
start to like put you down in front of their friends, things like that,
Yeah.
right? For their own self-preservation.
Oh,
It'd be
yeah.
interesting to see things like
Oh,
that.
for sure.
So we have infatuation, stage number one, the honeymoon stage. Stage number two is called disillusionment, which is also called the power struggle phase. It's where a lot of relationships do die and break up.
Okay.
Your
About, did they say about how long? Is there like a typical time frame for that? And I know there's
This
no
they
such
don't
thing.
give a time frame
Okay.
for, right? Because I've seen, look, the honeymoon stage it says up to 6 months, but it could last up to a year with the right or the wrong person. I've
Yeah.
seen.
When people, it's like, oh no, 2 years and still, it's just like the first day. I'm like, there's something off about that.
Yeah, if people haven't had a fight in the first year, do you trust that?
No,
I've lived that. I definitely don't trust it,
no.
but you think
Dis
it's a great thing, but are you
no, no, no.
really, yeah,
Disagreements are healthy,
yeah. Well, they
right?
should be healthy.
Because a disagreement says that you feel comfortable enough voicing your opinion
Hmm.
to your partner.
Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't even have to be, I mean, we're talking about romantic love, but
Yeah.
whether it's family, friends, partner, so that you're comfortable enough voicing your opinion.
Hmm.
In a healthy romantic relationship, it means that if the person is willing to listen to that disagreement, they actually value your input. And it's a great way to kind of grow and learn from there.
Yeah, of
So it's
course. They
actually
want to they want to resolve it with you. They don't
absolutely.
forget that they're in love with the person. They're not like just trying to win an argument at all
I was gonna say
costs.
it's not a tally score, wins and losses.
No, and if
No,
you at the end can, either end up naked together or laughing together, I think that's a healthy, strong relationship.
or a bit of both, naked and laughing.
Depends what they're laughing at. Looking at Al's hair again. Um, Disillusionment, power struggle stage again. These are when you have your first fights. When you really realize your differences, let's say you go away for a weekend. People,
Yep.
often use that as a way to gauge,
Oh, it's
how healthy the relationship is.
there's a number of women where I like gone
Some
away.
people
It's like,
some people move in after the first year, which I don't recommend. I've
no,
tried
no,
that,
no.
and you learn that you will have fights, and you have
Oh
no
yeah,
idea how that
no.
person
I've
fights.
gone away with people where it's like I never
Yeah,
want to see them again after going away.
yeah,
And then there's other people I've gone away with, and it's like best time. It was just so easy with them.
yeah.
It was incredible. So yeah, you learn a lot from that experience.
Well, I think this is also when you learn how people react, like what their triggers are and what response they go into: fight, flight, or flee, right? And how
Or
compatible
faint.
you are, yeah, right? And how
Yeah.
compatible you are in those situations and
Yep.
how well you can work together. Number three is the third stage is challenges. Okay, this is the stability stage. You made it through the honeymoon stage. You've made it through the struggle stage where now you've tried to figure out how you really fit into each other's lives
Okay.
after you've got past the fantasy, right? Now you're in the reality and figuring out the power struggle stage. If you survive that, which not everyone does,
Yep.
so we've seen many times, now you're into a more stable stage of your relationship. And this is where you definitely learn how to work together, arguing constructively. You've now settled into the relationship and your specific roles in that relationship and defining who you are together, not individuals anymore. And this is when people might even start to like consider, getting married, living together. Um, how often do you think that fails when people really do start to live together for a long period of time. What do you think the stats are on that?
Well, I mean, if divorce is one in every two people, and that's just marriages, I
Mm.
would suspect, because again, common law, just people moving in, I would think it's got to be even higher.
Well, I remember moving in with someone after, a short period of time, and out of interest, when we started to have issues, I decided to go look it up.
Okay.
And the stats actually weren't great. It said a lot of people that move in together after this period of time, it was like 60% or something, 54 to 60% of people that actually broke up. So it didn't feel too bad. Right. And it said, no, it said if you go into this, the odds are,
Yeah.
and especially for me being divorced, having kids, and whether I was blending with someone else or just bringing in someone that didn't have kids, it, to mix those two lifestyles together, right? Or two families together. Yeah. There's, that's still part of the power struggle stage, even though you think you're over it,
Yeah.
but you're still having challenges once you think you're over it, you're really
You're
not,
not.
because now it's like you've figured out your stuff together, but now you haven't figured out stuff with all the extenuating circumstances, children and things like
Yep.
that. Number four is, I think, what you and I have discussed is your goal in any relationship is mature love. This is the commitment stage,
Okay.
right? Where either you commit to them or you are committed.
I look
This
great in a white jacket. I don't like the fact it ties up from behind, but I can rock that white jacket.
so go from the 50 Shades of Grey outfit that you were wearing to the white jacket.
No,
That's
I
interesting.
know. Well, yeah,
From
50
from
Shades. Yeah, the
from
50
le-
Shades. Yeah,
from
yeah. That was the whole black. Yeah,
from
I
leather
know.
bound to straight
I
jacket. Okay.
know. Yeah.
Uh, so mature love, you're in the commitment stage. This is, let's say, people get engaged,
Yep.
or people get married, or people just decide to live
Yep.
together. They do a ceremony under, in front of all their friends. Decide to get the government involved in their lives. This is when you decide to share your lives together. This is when people share resources, responsibilities, and they really commit to the relationship, whether it's with a ring or it's with money or time, effort. Yeah.
One thing you shouldn't do: don't get tattoos of your partner's name on you.
Johnny Depp learned that one the hard way.
Yeah.
It's I love Winona turned into I love winos. Yes. Um, so do you think you've ever hit the I gotta stop playing with the paper. Think you've ever hit the mature love phase?
So it's interesting because we talked about this a little bit in,
Mm,
in another episode. So even in terms of the concept of love and my understanding, that's something I always questions, like this philosophical question:
mm,
what is love? How do you know? Do I even believe in it? Does it really exist? So on and so forth. And
mm,
when I think back to levels of women who I was interested in, this and that, yeah, there were some situations where there's definite interest.
mm.
There were other relationships that I was in that definitely was not love.
Yeah.
Um, and then again, as I, I think as the episode on loneliness we talked about, actually, where I talked about the one situation you and I have talked about this, where
Mm.
there's definitely the one situation where I definitely was in love and loved
But
said
do you think
person.
you hit the mature love phase between the
So
two of you? Like full compatibility, everything seemed easy, everything was calm.
no, no,
Yeah. No, I personally, I look at it too. I'm like, I think, I got stuck in the challenges phase
yeah.
quite a few times, the disillusionment phase for sure. But it doesn't mean the relationship didn't continue on. You were still trying, but it never
It-
felt comfortable. Like,
there were. It's funny. There were elements where it would, and then there were other things. There were so many factors,
mm,
right? The whole series of
mm,
situations, which may or may not have impacted. And again, revisionist history.
yeah,
That's all well and great. Um, but it was a great learning experience
mhm,
in terms of that. In terms of what I can take away, even in terms
mhm.
of myself, I think the one thing that I learned from there too is, for me, my belief, maybe it was unrealistic, I don't know, but my belief was no matter what the challenge, there'd be a way to overcome it.
So you weren't willing at some point to just say self-preservation, I'm just going to walk away from this. Or you're just going to keep trying and trying, like banging your head against the wall, just thinking that it might solve itself. Or no matter, you could put the work in to fix it.
there's it's interesting
And has that
because
changed over time, or do you still feel that you're in the if you're in a relationship that you can make it work?
again, because of all the growth and learning, I think
Mm-hmm.
I would have to look at every situation
Mm-hmm.
specifically and look at the other person, look at myself, look at
Yeah.
our values, believe all those things. But the one thing that doesn't scare me is putting in the work, because I think the reality is I think everyone wants everything to be super
Easy.
easy these
Yeah.
days. And I'm not suggesting that a relationship should be constant struggles, because if it's nonstop struggles, there's a problem with that.
I think two people who come together who've done a ton of work on themselves and are willing to work on it can make it easier. Yeah.
Exactly. When you look at things today, okay?
If they're compatible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but when you look at things today, life is stressful, life is busy.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about anyone. I'm talking about just individual. Life is
Yeah.
stressful, life is busy, right? You throw in potential other factors. So it could be health factors, finance factors, kids, career factors, whatever else. There's all the then you mesh that with another person.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we want things to be super simple.
I don't know. You're dealing with human beings.
Exactly. And even if things are simple between the two people,
Mm-hmm.
there can be other factors going on, right?
Yeah.
Familial issues, again, someone job loss. Like there's other things that could put strains on
Mm-hmm.
relationships as well. All I'm saying is what I've learned is if I truly believe that it could be the person,
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to put that work in. And I'm willing to fight for it. And I'm willing to make that effort.
Yeah.
But there has to be a certain point of no return as well, where if it's all one-sided, for
Yeah.
example, that's a concern. Or if we're talking about other issues where it's a toxic situation in terms of, I don't know, we've talked about some of these things I think in the past, but someone has a major dependency issue where you're trying and trying to work with them and help, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not putting in the work.
Yeah.
How much you can do, or someone,
Yeah, you don't want to enable someone
no,
either.
or someone, you think about other situations, someone where they're abusive. No one should be. That's different than saying, well, I'm going to put in the work. He or she really loves me.
Mm.
No, there's no excuse for that. So again, I
No, someone
think
who's
it
constantly
depends.
cheating on someone else and just
Exactly.
you having a low opinion of yourself, so you just stay with that person, which
Exactly. If
look at
it's,
statistics, that happens quite
yeah,
often.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of factors. So
But so you and I, different ways, your parents, my grandparents, you've seen how a long-term relationship can work, and it's got ups and downs.
yeah,
It's got its own roller coaster over the years, and none of it's perfect.
no,
However, we were raised in a different era, where what we were watching on TV and things like that was teaching us the wrong lessons about love. Um, for women, one thing, the whole princess thing, but just even me watching a show like as simple as Family Ties as a kid, right? And the way they set up the show and the beats that they created in that show of like how he fall in love, how quickly the girl would disappear, then they get in a fight, the girl would come back. It's not the way you want to learn
yeah.
it.
When you say the princess thing, what do you mean by that? Because a story had just popped into my head
Oh,
about a
I'm
recent.
saying you have a lot of movies and a certain company that has perpetuated certain princess myth where
Oh,
certain,
okay.
like
No, because I had
certain subset of the
no, no,
population has
no, no,
fallen into
I
that
had an
trap. And
experience
yeah,
not so long ago with someone who I definitely defined as a princess, which I didn't find out till afterwards, and
Mulan.
uh, it's, it was really interesting. Where I'll share the story.
Mm,
So I was talking to someone. We were supposed to go out.
mm-hmm,
She canceled the night of because she was feeling nervous. It's like,
mm-hmm,
what the fuck, right? Like, come on. And I just said, you know what? No one should feel nervous, this and that. So I'm not gonna, you know what? You do you. It's all good.
yeah,
I respect that. They're like, oh no, no, I'm nervous because I'm excited about meeting you. Like, please don't get, the wrong impression. Uh-huh.
mm-hmm,
And right away, I'm like, my red flag meter's going off. But I'm like,
yeah,
okay, maybe someone's genuinely nervous. I've met people who are nervous. So
mm-hmm.
it's like, okay,
Give her another chance.
prove
Yeah.
me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Prove
Big
me wrong.
mistake
So
right there. Yeah.
super busy with things. So I was like, took some time, but stayed in touch, this and that. And, we talked at one point about chivalry and being
Mm-hmm.
a gentleman on a first date. So what I had said was, okay, she's like, I'll be ready for 7-ish if that works. She's like, well, I was thinking more 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
Came up with 3 restaurants by her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this way you don't have to travel far. And I said, you decide, you let me know if you want to go for drinks and appetizers, maybe you want to go for dessert. So like there are different, right? You
Yeah.
know, whichever one you want. And we can go to place one, place two, place three, like nice
Mm-hmm.
restaurants. And I got this text back talking about princesses
Mm-hmm.
saying, we're not going out. It's like, it's the issue now.
You rubbed her the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. I was not a gentleman because I planned the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but I didn't ask her where she wanted to go for dinner, the dinner of her
Mm-hmm.
choosing, because she wanted some really fancy dinner for a first date. And literally the response was, basically, my behavior is a huge red flag to her.
Mm-hmm. You were being set up for failure from day one. Yeah.
Exactly. And I just said, when you talk about the three L's,
Mm-hmm.
my fourth L was luck in this case because I said, thank you. I'm lucky. I dodged a bullet
Mm-hmm.
because the only red flag is you because the entitlement and the princess
Mm-hmm.
behavior. And I'm like, so good luck.
That entitlement, but also, we could go to the whole app thing of, all these women thinking that, they're deserving of the top 2% of men. And, there's a lot of sites that will
Yeah.
talk about this. You can go out and find them whatever you want.
Oh yeah. And
And saying how that's going to be the end of dating and society.
oh yeah. And I know I digress, but it's just, I heard princess, like, I got to share this story. And you know what? I
No.
would, I would, I would love to know from our
Mhm.
audience
How they feel about
how they
that.
feel about, here it was, like I said, there were three nice restaurant options I
Mhm.
gave. She wanted to go to a restaurant, but it was of her choosing because she just some crazy
I
expensive
think
meal.
I think that we were in a no-win
Yeah,
situation. She was just looking for any way to like get out of it, and that's just how she chose to do it, which is
absolutely.
kind of lame. But at the
Yeah,
same time,
yeah.
again, you got out of that one.
Oh yeah,
So
I dodged a bullet, but I'd love to
yeah.
know from our female listeners just their take on that and what they think of her behavior. Maybe
Poor Al.
that's okay. No, I'm good. I was like, thank you. I didn't really want to go out anyhow.
Like next.
Next, yeah. So where were we? So
But
talking
that brings
about,
us
yeah,
back to what we were talking about
yeah,
before. Now we're talking lust. Like
yeah,
you were interested in her. There was an attraction, but not based on knowing too much about her.
no,
And then even in her kind of, and keep in mind you are a bit of an avoidant, so the chase isn't such a bad thing. Anxious too.
yeah.
A chase in the past has been attractive to me in its own way, although I've learned from that.
Although I got
Um,
to be honest, I didn't chase in this case. I was like, okay, you
no,
you
you've
can,
learned.
yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
you canceled. You make the effort now.
Yeah, no, but
Sorry.
that's great
Yeah.
that you've learned that. But in the past, you might have
Oh,
chased,
are you
and
kidding? It would have been like, definitely got to go out
but
now.
see, that's less though.
Oh
Like
yeah,
based on how she looked, you really wanted to get to know her just based on that. And
yeah,
once you really did, whatever strong attraction you had faded fast. And that's actually what I have written down here for lust.
okay,
Having a strong attraction to someone, and it can fade fast.
yeah.
So lust is a pretty easy one. You know what lust is usually based on,
So let
right?
me,
It's physical. It's imagining what the person's like, and then obviously the honeymoon phase. You're going to learn a lot about them, and
yeah.
that's going to be over pretty quickly because you guys aren't compatible in any way.
So I have a question for you then,
Yeah.
because again, you put a lot of research into this topic.
Yeah.
So when I think the term
Hmm.
infatuation, lust, can we use those interchangeably, or is infatuation kind of fall under a different category?
I think you take that past lust, which would be our third category, which would be limerence. I mean, lust is a pretty easy one. Everyone knows what lust is.
Right.
Everyone's felt it.
Yeah.
Right? Animal attraction to someone, but that may not be the best thing for you.
Yeah.
And that can fade over time very quickly. But now if we go into talking about limerence, which is the third L that we wanted to talk about, there is a greater fantasy aspect in that.
Okay.
There is an obsession in that. In a
Okay.
relationship, there can be emotional dependency. And when you break up with someone, and anxious people will feel this, there's a love sickness to that. So it seems like limerence is quite unhealthy for people, right? As your third option.
So with limerence then, and the way you started off talking
Mhm.
about that, almost that fantasy element, I can almost see that in some cases being really serious, almost from like an obsession point of view as well.
Well, we can go back to the 1980s movie, Lionel Richie and Diana Ross song "Endless Love" as well. That movie, Brooke Shields. I can't remember the guy's name. I remember that was one of Tom Cruise's first movies too.
Okay.
But yeah, that was high school love. He was infatuated with her. She broke up with him because the family found him to be a bit weird, and he ended up burning down the house.
Okay.
That's the whole premise of that movie. Sorry for ruining it for you, but most millennials are not going to go back and watch it. Um, would help though. But yeah, so I think that that's more of a greater example of that. So it's an extreme,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So I think what we wrote down a definition for limerence is a term for extreme form of romantic obsession. It's intense, potentially destructive.
Okay.
Um, Far greater than the standard crush or honeymoon phase. It is filled with irrational behavior, almost like a drug addict, right? It involves desperation, urgency, impaired judgment. This is, I think you got this quote from a sexologist named Denise Ryan, or Renye, Renier, PhD.
Okay.
I think you link that, or we will link it. But they say limerence, you disregard your own needs, and it's like such an infatuation. There's been a bunch of movies made about this. I watched one in the early 80s with the guy who was the good guy in The Terminator. And he had an infatuation for an actress, right? You've heard of other actresses who've
Yeah.
been killed
Oh yeah.
because the younger sister on the TV show My Sister Sam, I believe she was one. She was murdered by a fan.
Yeah.
The older sister in Poltergeist was murdered by a fan,
Look at the movie
because
Fatal.
it's
Made
something that you
it.
don't
Yeah.
even know. It's
No.
just you've seen something and you
Yeah.
just have that
Yeah.
infatuation with them. You have to know them, and if you can't have them,
No one else
Bodyguard's
can.
a good example of that too.
Fatal Attraction.
Yeah, Fatal Attraction, right? If you can't have them, no one can, and right,
But that
it's
and that
dangerous.
no, and that's where it's disturbing.
Yeah.
It's scary.
But I mean, that's an extreme. Other people will give into that. But I'm just saying, like, people who are in relationships, they'll give their all to the relationships because this is my person, right? It's the infatuation of thinking like this is my dream person, and then when it doesn't work out the way it's supposed to be, is it really about the other person? It's in your own head. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I thought this was my person. I can't lose them. I'm going to do anything to keep them, right? Or the person even breaks up after a relationship, can't deal with it in a healthy way, and just they're with their friends. They're following them or doing other
Yeah, but it
things.
goes back to,
Right.
I'm sure whether you've experienced it, someone where someone ends something,
Mm-hmm.
and the person who's on the receiving end of it being ended
Mm-hmm.
doesn't take a hint, where it's like someone go, I just need a break. I'll reach out with them. And they keep pushing, they keep pushing, they keep pushing, that type of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's even like, okay, you need to stop, and they're not getting a hint with that as
Yeah.
well. Right. And that's why I say that's where there's this level of real discomfort, very uneasy feeling. So,
Like, I think of the song James Blunt, "You're Beautiful," right? Just talking about a girl that he saw on a train,
yeah.
right? At least he was realistic about it in the song. But there are other people who may not be realistic about that.
No, but like I said, and it goes back to, I mean, how often you see that with celebrities, because like this
You
famous
think you know them,
face.
and especially now, more that they're on social media, they do let you know a little bit more about themselves. But is it
Absolutely.
really 100% who they are? No.
No, no.
So, I mean, it's interesting because when you look at all the three different things, but different parts too, as people are healing, they may go through all these different L's when
Yeah.
they're meeting people. And I'm sure when people were younger, they might have gone through limerence, and like it hit them really hard because they didn't know what they were dealing with, and through whatever trauma they suffered when they were younger, they had to learn that's what that was,
Right.
right? And it's not real love. Most people have to learn that lust is not love, because you can certainly be in a relationship where you think you're in a relationship, but really most of it's based on sex
I was just going to
and
say,
attraction. But whenever it comes to other things, you're always fighting. But that part of your relationship's great, but that would probably be more or less than being again compatible and having like all the other aspects of what you'd want in your relationship: intimacy, passion, commitment.
well, I was going to say that passion part, which is really key. And again, passion takes on different elements. But when I think lust, like you say, the sexual intimacy, that passion, right? So
Mhm.
like just tear the clothes off the person, so on and so forth. But if you're not having those deep conversations, if you can't have that quiet time where you're spending time together,
Mhm.
quality time, if you're not doing other things aside from
Mhm.
just, you know, being in the bedroom, being in the living room, being on the kitchen table, being wherever, then
Yeah.
again, that's not a healthy love relationship. And again, I'm not.
I don't want to label anything any specific way. I remember a couple episodes ago we had our friend Bev on,
Yeah.
And she said, the first question said, well, how do you define, a relationship?
Yeah.
Or how do you define why people are dating? There's different reasons for why people are dating. So thank you, Bev, for that. Shout out to you. It's securely loved. Bev Middleman. Um, so, but no, what she was saying is like people date for different reasons,
And
right?
then,
So you can't say everyone's in
oh,
search of love, right? Some people are in search of just
oh,
lust.
absolutely.
Some people, will latch onto the first person who even talks to them on a dating app and think that that's love, which is limerence, right? Because they're not having much luck with other people. So they'll latch onto the first person that gives them attention. But the healthier people, right? Or I say most people think they're in search of love, but are most people really in search of love? And like, who really knows what to look for?
And again, when I was making and talking about the lust, I'm not criticizing it.
No.
I have no issue with it whatsoever.
No, you felt it. It's probably enjoyable at the time.
Absolutely. All I'm saying is that
She threw all your stuff out the window on the lawn. Yeah.
It's just if we're talking about
Take
healthy
your
love,
dog. Yeah.
right? If we're talking healthy
Boils
love,
your bunny.
rabbits too.
Yes, exactly.
I'm trying to think where I was going with this now. It's just they're two very, very different things, and that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
but
three
again,
different things. Yeah.
yeah, no, but I'm talking about the lust,
love and the lust. Yeah.
yeah. But
But
again,
lust could turn into love if there actually was compatibility, or you both kind of
for
change,
sure,
or one person was willing to change and it was healthy in its own way. Yeah.
yeah. I'm not saying it can't develop. But again, people are in relationships for different purposes, different reasons. And again, it's not about judging. I mean, who is someone to say?
No, people are at different stages too. Some people are working out their own stuff, and it's like if you just want to get in a relationship, have a physical relationship with someone, who could fault you for it?
Just be upfront about it.
And as long as you're not using that other
like I
person,
say,
and you're,
be
upfront. Yeah.
And some people, in terms of relationships, they're looking for companionship, and sometimes it's literally just social companionship. Other times it's lustful companionship, because there's different types of needs that are being met. So there's no wrong or right or criticism in terms of that. It's more that awareness piece.
Look, you could have limerence with a friend too, someone moving into your house, single white female, right? No, it happens, right? That's its own issue, limerence, right? Of just how people feel about other people. Like if we put that on the outside, we're dealing between love and lust. That gets confused a lot more.
Absolutely. Like to me, like I say, the limerence, I'm not saying in all cases, but it's, again, you see these movies and it's like about a stalker or someone who's obsessed. That's kind of that creepy outlier, right? But I think it's important because, again, before you brought this up, Mike, I think, okay, there's love, there's lust, there's infatuation, which, as you say, is more under the lines of limerence now. But it's do we understand it? Do we understand these terms and what they really mean?
You can define lust in different ways. There's that girl that watched a couple episodes before, you had the ringlets, and she automatically, I'm in love with them. Then you just put your hair up in the bunch, like I'm out. Right? Where someone else is like, I love the bun, but I didn't love, the ringlets. So it's like I love Adam without a hat on. I love Adam with short hair.
There you go.
Right? It's like,
so you know what we can do in this,
right? But that's fleeting, right?
There you
because
go.
It's like I don't really value the person. It's an aspect of them.
Although we could do a poll after this episode comes out.
Oh, I love the hair. I think it's a winner.
Up, down, or in a hat. I don't know.
That hair alone should get us at least like 50 subscribers.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. Are we comfortable with how we're leaving this episode right now? The law of attraction. How do you feel that you're attracting people for the right way or the right reasons, and and you're dating for the right reasons? So that one at you.
Me personally, or yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, look.
There are times when you're in the mode where maybe I'm not ready for something serious, so I'm dating for lust, or I'm just dating to get to know different people.
Or it could be just dating to get to know someone with the hopes of it turning into something more significant. There's times, we've talked about it in the past too, where a relationship ends, you're kind of feeling low, and you just want to feel good about yourself. And as long as you make it clear. But I've done that as well, where it's.
I think everyone tries different things, and especially as they're working on themselves, until they find the right mix of what's working for them, or until they find the right person that they can really work with. They'll try out different, types of dating. Let's say, thanks, Bev. But sooner or later, you might find the right person, and then you're really paying attention to these stages of what real love would be.
But
A lot of people have thrown at me recently because I am in a relationship, and I'm actually out of the first 3 months. That, it's all the honeymoon phase. And it's like, well, in 3 months, it won't be the same. In 6 months, it won't be the same. Like, who's to say that, though?
absolutely,
Right?
because it's interesting when I think honeymoon stage, I think there's the general idea of, oh, everything's just easy and it's all just movie-esque and so on and so forth. I
Mm-hmm.
think that might be kind of
Is that when
a
you test them by telling them you're going to strip club?
exactly.
Okay.
Um, that I think might be more of a pop culture
Yeah.
idea. Whereas for me, when I think honeymoon stage,
Mm.
that's more just, as we talked about earlier, kind of the butterfly feeling and this and that. Um,
Lust.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. But if, again, depending on how things start off, depending on where that intimacy lies, and I talked earlier about the five different types, and it might be hard to find all five, but if, you hit on, let's say, four of those, and that's going really well, and you have these conversations, you're really getting to know a person and so on and so forth, why can't a lot of the way things started off continue?
Yeah.
Right? So,
You're both willing to work on it.
and the thing is, there's also that assumption.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, only you know what's really going on in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that in the first 3 or 4 months there maybe haven't been disagreements or different viewpoints on things,
No,
right?
and hopefully there were healthy disagreements that actually led you to a form of understanding and you actually learned more about each other.
Sometimes it brings you closer too,
Yeah.
right? And so that's where when you look at that, it's like, so again, people think honeymoon stage where it's just this great,
Yeah.
idyllic thing. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that, but there's this idea of that's what it represents.
Okay. So we're saying lust is okay if that's where
Yeah.
you're at. Seeking, mature love is for people who want to fall in love, is what they're looking for or what they should be striving for. And limerence is something you just have to be careful of.
Absolutely.
All right. I think we did an okay job with that. I'm sure if anyone has any questions, feel free to comment on any of our sites,
No.
our growing sites. And hope, you will share, like, and subscribe.
Or they can share love and subscribe.
Share, love, and
Yeah, just
subscribe.
don't lust, and please, no limerence. Yeah.
Please lust after Al's hair again, and the more likes, the better.
You can give my hair a 5-star rating with great reviews about that if you'd like.
Yes. And, or if you have any hairdressers that would like to get their hands on Al's hair, let us know as well. Thank you all for being on this episode of the Kings of Chaos podcast. I'm Adam.
I'm Al. Until next time,
Bye, everyone.
take care.